Hey everybody, welcome back. Happy New Year. I think this is probably the first video I've done even um, when I'm considering the Death Stranding stuff. I've also been streaming over the holidays, but I've got some New Year's decodes to do on the Steganography front, and there are things that have been percolating over the last several weeks. This is one of the concepts I had been outlining that I was alluding to. In the coming days, I'm also going to do one on the wrap up of the first season of the Mandalorian show, that Star Wars show that was on the Disney streaming service that came out. Watched that, and there's actually quite a bit to that, believe it or not. If you're new to the channel, you may be surprised by that, but if not, you know that Star Wars is potentially one of the most heavily archetyped and mythologically scaffolded things that's ever been made, and even Lord of the Rings doesn't really even compare to what you can find in Star Wars. So a lot of stuff that's going to be in that is both ancient Earth history and contemporary in nature, because everything's in cycles. It makes sense that these things, that history repeats itself, etc. But what you're looking at right now is 2020, obviously, and we've got the new Economist cover out. And if nobody's seen this, they took the motif of 2020 being the 2020 vision for, and the vision is highlighted down here, of course, for seeing the world. This is actually steganography for the occult, because the occult is to what? To see the culture, oculus, cult, culture. That's all a cult is. It's creating a new form of culture, kind of a radical form of culture. But if nobody had ever thought about the Economist cover, if you've seen it before, indeed, in terms of the occult, that's at least what I see. And it's kind of a word search as well. This is just as they always do. I open it up to people who may want to send me a message or two on what they find in here. I've got my own kind of word search going, so cross-reference it to what I found. I think I'm going to make another video on this at some point in time. But with this being the theme, the thing about 2022 that, or 2020 as well, so we don't conflate our language here, is that 2020 is also being referred to in mimetic language as year zero, which leads me to believe that this may be, if we're looking forward in time, the demarcation line for when things change so much that we need to make a new calendar. And of course, the sorcerers that control all of this under the guise of, the churches and the established governments and such, they do this every once in a while. The Gregorian calendar, which we are living on right now, is of course the systematic yearly structure. But as we calculate dates, the reset of that hasn't happened since Christ. Of course, this is where we got the BC AD delineation. And so what my supposition is, and we may not even know this for 20, 30 years, because it's only in hindsight, it seems, that societies look back and they say that, well, the year blank will be the year in which we will reset the years. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. Cliff High has said year zero, as it's expressing itself in prescient language, is related to zero crops. We're not going to have. Let me rephrase that. The crops that we produce this year, agriculturally within the United States, will not be enough to reach net zero. Meaning we'll have a net loss or a net negative of crops just because of the weather patterns and such, able to feed the society. But further than this, as you guys are looking at, we're going to get into some steganography with these tarot cards. We got V, we've got X and V. We've covered these ones before. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on what this is all about, because why a 2020 is year zero is really what we're going to get into. The cover itself is not going to be decoded. Rather, we're going to get into some of the stuff that dark journalists Daniel or DJ and Gigi Young were talking about last Friday with their X steganography series, how it relates to some of this. And of course, we're actually going to be looking into the recent news of the Space Force being announced and why the V and lambda steganography may factor into this. So today is, as the screen shares, Sunday, January 5th. And to start off with, so I was starting to see some very suspicious synchronicity, just as I always do when I'm looking at things in the occult. And I wasn't even going to include this in the video, but guys, the NFL playoffs are going on, and the Seahawks in particular. I don't watch football anymore, but I hear about the Seahawks all the friggin' time because everybody in my life still does watch the Seahawks. I was once upon a time a Seahawks fan myself before I realized that through, as we've talked about on the channel too, through Zach Hubbard and his work and the Free to Find Truth blog, that this is, all of these games are rigged through gematria, which is an ancient Hebrew practice of encoding numbers and letters into words. And what we find, why I'm bringing this to the attention of anybody here today is because this is going to factor in to some of the secret space program stuff that's now coming out into light, and what we need to be aware of as we course into the new year, and what's being hidden from us. And it's mostly V steganography, again, with my expertise. 11.5, to those who know the gunpowder plot, the Q videos that I did where I really see Q being a bastardized representation of Jesuit casuistry, basically. And I go into that all in my Q videos you can find on my channel. But 11.5 is the date of the gunpowder plot, November 5th. Remember, the 5th of November. And this is, of course, the whole Anon movement, where this meme is hiding what actually behind the scenes is going on with the Wizard of Oz scenario. I don't really think people understand what's happening when they take up the helm of an Anon here. And you know, we've talked about that before with this image. This is, of course, just the V for Vendetta comic, which we've gone into in that series, in those two videos as well. But guys, this has to do somewhat with the space program, and I'll tie it into that. But you guys notice too, 24, 2:40 p.m., 24 is Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch just re-signed with the Seahawks. I don't do the gematria decodes for sports anymore. I don't waste my time. I spent a whole season doing it. I just when I see things line up with the other work, I'll plop them in. And this one, the game, I don't know if this has anything to do with the ritual of the offseason, if this means that the Seahawks are destined for the Super Bowl. I have, like I said, I haven't done any of these decodes, but even if they were destined, remember, it's just athletic theater. It's a predetermined result. This is a spell. The archetypes that are in this spell are spilling out into the real world. And because of these stadiums that the games are played on are on ley lines, of course, the spell is amplified because of the eighth sphere and the Earth Grid Control Network. Where's the, I got to get my order up here for my photos. Sorry if we'll go through this. Here we go. The Earth Grid Control pattern that we've talked about on the channel before. So anywho, let me minimize all this stuff because we're going to reference some of that stuff. It's nothing the viewer hasn't seen before on this channel. But getting back to Dark Journalist and the interview he did with Gigi Young on Friday. No, on New Year's. So this is only 4 days ago. This was their New Year's show. And I'm just going to, I've stopped it at about the hour and 47-minute mark. And I'm just going to play this so you guys can hear what it is she's talking about.
Build a particle accelerator, and then you build a bigger one.
She's talking about CERN. Sorry, CERN, you know, being the particle accelerator.
And then you do that, and like I think that there's channeling going on to give people, you know, this guidance. And I believe that they believe that they're summoning like a god. The great old ones are like a god. Like that's what they believe. They don't realize that that's not what's going on. Like they're being duped. And so it's a tragic thing all around for everybody.
The price to pay, it's kind of like making a deal with the mafia at the end. It's like, the black magic mafia is going to show up.
Yeah, exactly.
You brought up something interesting when we touched on the eighth sphere recently. And I want to talk about this in relation to CERN. We're going to try to draw all three of these together. During Aleister Crowley's work, during his searches around magic, which deteriorated into him being a really large-scale black magician, but before that, with Mathers and Golden Dawn, they had learned, and I like to remind everyone that the Golden Dawn comes out of these scrolls that were found that were left by this abbot Valentinus, which is exactly where we get steganography from. So all these things and their relationship are fascinating. But in Golden Dawn, there are all these magic rituals and all the rest of it. And so Crowley goes gradually on that tip, and then his work gets darker and darker. But as he's going darker and darker, at one point he runs across a character, Gigi, named Lamb. Lamn. And you've seen Lamb, and you mentioned something interesting, which is you said he looked very much like a gray alien.
Lamb, I believe that Lamb actually is a gray alien.
Yes.
And it's funny because I think that they were communicating essentially with these gray aliens. Because if you look at Lamb, he has a very enlarged head, very enlarged cranium, just like a gray, kind of like the eyes, or at least some humanoid form that was devolving into a gray. So that's what I think that actually is. And I think
he does. He looks like he's at a midway point of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to go Google it, it's Lamb, Lam. Is it Lamm or Lam?
I think it's two M's. Yes.
Yeah, Lamb, and which is kind of strange because Christ was a lamb, and it's sort of this weird. There's some kind of weird thing. It's always perverted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
so anyway, I'll stop it right there because I just wanted to get to the Lamb piece. We're picking out a lot here with this video. Of course, DJ is a student like myself of steganography. As he mentioned, there in these ancient, the ancient teachings that came about in more recent writings like the Golden Dawn, the Kabbalion, and Aleister Crowley was pivotal to all this stuff and really got too deep into corrupting his mind with what originally was, I think, a pure form of occult investigation, let's call it. But he's talking about steganography being a practice of these sorcerers, and that's why we're picking it apart, because you can't hope to cast the spell unless you put it in plain sight, like the rules of the occult would dictate. And this is why you have things like this popping out, and why gematria works to decode sports games, obviously. But deeper level stuff here, they're talking again about the eighth sphere. The Earth Grid Control Network is a network that I don't know if we've tied the concepts together well enough on this channel yet, but that, in my opinion, is mechanistically a product of the moon hovering around in a magnetic fashion, as we've seen in these eighth sphere diagrams, such that it creates and enhances the Earth Grid Control Network down here on Earth. And then the 5G, of course, being the thing that they want to amplify with even more. And this is just as we course further into scientific materialism here, is a term I've loved that Joseph Farrell, I think, coined, and I think DJ uses in relation to that. They're talking about this being something that is the mind control mechanism. Steganography is the means by which they hide it. X is Daniel's expertise, the X steganography, the UFO file. I cover V, which I've only been able to kind of break down into the fact that it's the ether steganography, the spirituality steganography at large, the grid itself. I don't know exactly what V might be occluding. X is a little bit more straightforward, I think, as Daniel has pointed out, but both are related as it relates to the slavery system, the bonds, the grid network, X and V, both on the devil card, keeping us in shackles. And we'll go into some of that as well. But Gigi says at the end some very key things about the Lamb. And of course, we on this channel are all about the lambda and the V, and the up, which is the upside down V from the V steganography. Just get an image of the lambda up, actually. And of course, half-life is going to be the one that pops up. Why not? You know, like, why not show that one here? The classic lambda, the upside down V, which is what kind of occludes this stuff. And gosh, there's going to be a lot of stuff in this game for me to decode too. I don't want to decode another game anytime soon because it's just kind of a slog. It's the one I'm doing right now with Death Stranding as it relates to the 8th grid and the metempsychoses and the hijacking of life after death via the 8th grid. Please check those videos out if you care. They're, you know, it's just a game playthrough. But we're starting to get into how this all ties together and why, of course, this matters for 2020. But Gigi's talking about Christ as the Lamb. We've got the Lamb, of course, in the Hierophant card on the lap. We've pointed out before. Lambda being this. Christ is the Lamb. What is Christ really signifying? And remember, if we pick up the chakra system again, and we match Earth to the 4th sphere appropriately where it's at, it's being hijacked by the orbiting 8th sphere. Saturn's down here, of course. Let's just pull up the, here we go, Saturn, Sun, Moon, Earth, Jupiter, Venus, Vulcan. And as Steiner said so many times, the attempt that it is being made is for us to jump to Jupiter, the throat chakra here. Right now, the Merkaba is being manipulated. So, there's something to do with the lambda reappropriating this energy, hiding it from view. 5 is the number of man, of course. It's the harmonic of the hand, the 5 digits that we count by, that we run our society based off of, basically. So this is all just that preamble. But what I'm going to tie this to, guys, is by the end of the video here, we're going to go into the new Lockheed Martin crafts, the new Skunk Works programs that are being unveiled, and like we alluded to, the Space Force being the 6th branch of the military now. And first, we're going to have to go back into what's happening on these cards, so you guys have a symbolic representation of this. We can reference it throughout the video. The wheel card here, I'll hold this up. You're going to notice a couple things that are going to be interesting, to say the least, as it relates to this V steganography. What you've got is you've got Anubis down here, you've got a serpent here, you've got a Sphinx with a sword up at the top, you've got a lion or a Leo, of the sign of Leo down here, a bull or Taurus, you've got a water bear or Aquarius up here, and you have what Scorpio sometimes is represented by. It's sometimes the eagle, sometimes the scorpion. But they're choosing to represent Scorpio with the eagle, of course. You have Rota, R-O-T-A, the word's Rota, and you've got some Hebrew characters here. You've got Hey, right here and here. You've got Vav here, which we've actually talked about before, and that one's what is that one called? That one's called it's the first letter. It starts with an A, and I'm blanking on it. I'm just gonna have to look it up. Yod, excuse me. It's not. This is Yod. I was misunderstanding this. This is Yod. And actually, if you were to pronounce these within Hebrew, without the characters without the vowels associated with it, this would be Yahweh. Y-H-V-H. Y-H-V-H. Yahweh, without the A's, of course. So there's a lot going on this wheel card. The X steganography is why I brought this out, combined with the V steganography, with the X steganography and the keys right there front and center. I don't know if we've ever pointed that out here on the channel, but of course this is what ties them together. And the Wheel of Fortune tarot card. The Wheel of Fortune tarot card represents karma, but also balance, movement, and the cycles of the cosmos. The Wheel of Fortune card is constant motion because someone is always doing something somewhere. And so Yahweh, the Latin, and then the Latin word for wheel, rota, rota. That's what the wheel means in Latin. Also, which is interesting, if you use the T twice and you're starting at the 12 o'clock position, you can spell the word tarot, Tarot. Very interesting indeed. I have never decoded why that might be, but you also see in the middle here, I forgot to point out, maybe the most important element is the Earth at the center with the X steganography blanketing it. And what are those but keys? It's 4 keys. You got 2 keys in the Hierophant card. You have 4 keys in this card. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in the Book of Revelation related to keys and the chakra system that ties into this as well, in the clues that John the Baptist was giving us in terms of breaking out of this Earth grid control network. Activating your chakra system, of course, has a ton to do with it. You can't possibly know any of this knowledge until you activate the centers of your body, especially the third eye where the serpent heads meet here, to download, the heavenly angelic information from your. So anyway, because of how this energy flow goes, you download from here, it goes down all the way down to your root, and then rises back up again. But all we're doing is we're downloading to the root, and we're keeping ourselves in Saturnian energy, of course, in slavery to materialism, based upon the agenda of Ahriman and the 8th sphere that has been created on the Earth's grid control network. Anyway, what the Sphinx at the top of the wheel represents is wisdom and equilibrium. The Sphinx on the Wheel of Fortune tarot uses us to consider life's riddles and seeks us to answer them. So it's begging us to answer the questions of the riddle that is buried beneath this steganography. The serpent, Typhon, the destroyer, descends the wheel on the left, and while Anubis, the Egyptian god who leads the souls who departed to the afterlife. This is a cycle. Remember, serpent to be the 5 is representative of humankind, and they are descending and are being destroyed by this constant life-death process of being captured in the 8th sphere. Like Death Stranding is showing us, it appears our life after death process, our metempsychoses, the time when we're supposed to be resolving karma between lives, like what this is all about, resolving karma between lives, the cycle of reincarnation. That process is being hijacked by none other than what we would consider the devil, combining the 2 steganographic symbols, the X and the V, all over the magic spells that they're giving us throughout the world, and the harmonic energy, the Luciferian energy. Even though they're 2 beings, Luciferian energy might be a little bit more a common parlance for people to use. It's being used against us. And again, I want to give people hope with this. This is not to scare anybody away. This is to discover the occult for yourself, understand what these signs and symbols mean, resonate with them, and actually pick apart what Jesus was truly saying when he was appealing to humanity to activate the Christ, to activate basically the DNA within us, like we were talking about in the last video, where the ancient Earth history with the DNA manipulation, after the 8th sphere was already created, it would seem, to put us asleep. But Christ really wants us to get here to activate this heart center. So again, guys, this quote reigns supreme. I know this stuff sounds a little bit crazy. It's going to. The occult is always going to sound a little bit nuts by design to people just getting into it. But anyway, the Wheel of Fortune, let's see if there's anything else going on here that we need to really pick apart. Because I want to show the Hierophant and then what the Devil card represents. We've picked apart the Hierophant card somewhat in the past. But it represents the religious doctrine in perfect balance and harmony. So balance and harmony, balance and harmony. There's a reason why maybe harmony is a word that is used, because harmonics, having to do with the Earth grid network itself, it being a Hertzian frequency. When Konstantin Weil, of course, in another one of my videos I've shown, has measured the temple structures, they create perfect resonances. So there is a method by which the eighth sphere operates, it would seem, as the cards would dictate, to give us this balance and harmony to a point where we don't think anything is basically askew or afoot. It's just normal to us that our spiritual ability is totally deactivated. But anyway, the Hierophant card, the pillars represent principles of religion. The Da Vinci Code is, I'm trying to find stuff here that we haven't already really talked about. Oh, the Hierophant is not keeping his devotees completely into the dark. This is true. He's kind of opening his arms. If you see if these people represent us, the ones who seek the knowledge, the Hierophant is opening his arms, letting us know that if you have the eyes to see, you can see this. It's actually not totally hidden from view. Again, the occult also has to be given to us in these clues. And these important clues in the cross explain the religious principles expressed in the Hierophant, in the material as well as the spiritual world. So it's to understand how they both blend together. And the Devil card, of course, it's a little bit more straightforward. But the one thing I wanted to talk about with the Devil card in particular is that because of the pleasures that we experience here, the temptations that we succumb to, these things are the carnal pleasures, and they are pleasurable, seriously. But it's also kind of what makes the Sodom and Gomorrah state we live in. Combining our ignorance of the X and V, we get enslaved, is how I would interpret how the Devil card is used in combination of hiding both of these things from the occult. Traditionally, the Devil card too, these chains are loose on these two human figures next, the male and the female represented. Because they're loose, it would also indicate that they can leave these chains at any time. And this is also true. Arming ourselves with this knowledge, these two individuals can indeed leave their predicament and move on to more spiritual, less material endeavors. So, anyhow, this is kind of where we're at with the government, the powers that be, the eighth sphere occluding from view from us what's going on. This is deeper into the steganography of it. But this is going to be of chief importance in 2020, so that we see through the symbolism that these spells are being cast on. Now, with a little bit more of a foundation that I've never given before, this is now going to be where we reference Joseph Farrell again, and I'm going to link, as I always do, videos, articles in the description of the video, so we can get a better understanding of where we're coming at this from. But there are some new key pieces of progress that we're striding toward quick, ever so steadfastly throughout this last month. December was nuts in terms of disclosure for the UFO file, the X file, the space program, Skunk Works, everything that they've developed at Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman over the years. I think we're about to see a massive amount of technology in the next 10-year period of time be unveiled. Again, year zero. Things are going to be so different from here on in that we're going to have to demarcate that we were living here and now we're living in this new paradigm, basically. And what do I believe that true paradigm to be? Nothing other than space. Now, and then we've got a responsibility, of course, which we'll get into by the end of this too. But Joseph Farrell goes, and there's this brilliant article he wrote, and I am only going to read some of these quotes that he quotes Stephen Quast with during his video, because what he's doing is he's on December 13th referencing a video that Stephen Quast
quality
that Stephen Quast here in this video that he gave a lecture, about a half-hour lecture, he devoted about a half hour to lectures and then about a half hour to question and answer at the end regarding the urgent need for a U.S. Space Force. And if you look into who Stephen Quast is actually, let's get Stephen Quast up here while he's talking, so you can kind of get a more strapping, view of the guy. He's deep state general. He's been involved for 30 years with the skunk work programs, and he quite clearly has been told by the powers that be, or whoever run these programs, that he is to go around and to start talking about the technology that's been developed in an elusive way. An elusive with an I and elusive with an A is what he's alluding to quite a bit, but also refusing to say things specifically that would put people onto too much of a confirmation of what's happening. People like you and I, who are looking into it, are decoding it just fine. But Joseph Farrell notes here, there's a remark from his speech at Hillsdale College. And I'll just say, Quast ultimately makes the case that the United States must be able to bring kinetic power, non-kinetic power, and informational power to the battlefield cheaper and faster than its adversaries in order to ensure strategic advantage in space. Around the 12-minute mark in the speech, Quast makes the somewhat bizarre claim that the U.S. currently possesses revolutionary technologies that could render current aerospace capabilities obsolete. And again, the 12-minute mark in the video I just referenced. Sorry about that. That's coming later in the video. Something related with Top Gun, obviously. If you guys have seen the trailer for that movie, you'll probably know exactly where I'm going with that point. But the technology. So anyway, here's what Stephen Quast says: the technology is on the engineering benches today, but most Americans and most members of Congress have not had time to really look deeply at what is going on here. But I've had the benefit of 33 years of studying and becoming friends with these scientists, the scientists, of course, at the Skunk Works programs. This technology can be built today with technology that is not developmental to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in less than an hour. And this is, Joseph Farrell catches this too. I caught it right in his speech, but this is the really curious piece of his whole thing here, because he says, he's not saying any other place on Earth. He's saying we have the developmental tech, we have the ability to build transportation to deliver any human being that begins on Earth, that originates their journey on Earth, is what he says. Deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth. So the human is originating their journey on planet Earth to any other place. He does not say any other place on Earth. And as Joseph Farrell states, he agrees with my assumption here, in less than an hour, to any other place than less than an hour. So to me, he's talking about at the very least, the bounds of our interspatial is a bad word for it, our immediate local environment in our solar system. What I suspect he's saying is we've got the ability to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in our solar system in less than an hour. And this would check out with all of the developmental tech that the suppositional mind would suggest that they've built with the TR-3B craft, of course. Everybody on this channel is probably aware of this friggin' thing. The TR-3B craft, I really do expect we're going to see one of these things before too long. These types of craft, though, are well beyond developmental phase and have probably been in mass production even for a lot longer than we can probably presume. Why is this all happening now? Well, this all has to do with, of course, I think, the eighth sphere experiencing some static. I think humanity has backfed the system a little bit with our psychic abilities and our ability to see through this stuff, and I think the ability of the elites to do it as effectively as they have in the past, that is the steganographic spell, is I think it's wearing down, and we're seeing through what it, like with the economic collapse, these trade wars with China, and all this stuff all factors in, I think, to what they're trying to hide here. China landing on the dark side of the moon, right under everybody's noses. What's going on here, right? Not for this video, but it does lead us off into some other directions with some other companies that I just want to make people aware to as well. that we're not going to go do a ton of steganography into today, but Gravity Industries. We've got the Lambda, we've got the V right in their logo. This is kind of like the Iron Man suit. This stuff is coming out, right? We also have, you know, I'd pulled this up as a curiosity because I think there are some data companies. There are some companies that are moving data through Turvo. Obviously, the Lambda, and they were caught in the news with the CEO expensing $76,000 at strip clubs recently. This is a peripheral item. It's not something that I have added into the context of much of the secret space stuff too much yet, but I do know it connects. So I kind of mentioned this one, I guess, for the viewer in case there is a little bit of gematria you want to tie to this whole story yourself. Feel free, but it all factors into us publicly announcing that we're going to be doing this space redux, or or officially going to space, and it also has to do with whatever the hell they're trying to do over here at CERN with this X17 fifth force particle. This is also some V steganography that we're going to get into. XV steganography, rather. But what is so interesting about the timing of this, and we'll get to, obviously, for those who are into keeping up with the movies, Top Gun trailer also came out over the December holiday break, and it's not really at the end, until the end, that we get the title screen, and then I'll just play it from here. So here we have, I'll pause it and I'll put Tom Cruise front center, and he's in some sort of gravity suit. He's in some sort of atmospheric compression suit or something, and we go frame by frame here. He's got some, I don't know much about otherworldly type of aircraft, but he's also, I'll hit play here. He's also in some sort of, it would seem to me to be like evolution of the Blackbird. I don't know what the heck that jet is, but you can see the shape of it. It's taking off somewhere in the middle of the desert, so this is probably one of, indicative of a Skunk Works, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico facility somewhere where this, incredibly advanced aircraft is taking off from. Sonic boom. He looks back at it. He's, I don't know what the agenda is for this movie to also come out in 2020. But again, occult. This is all steganography, guys. This is all them showing us in plain sight what they're about to do. And then along with that, all of a sudden, you've got the B-2 bomber everywhere. But from before this last year in 2019, it was incredibly hard to get any information, any additional information that was already publicly available to find out about the stealth bomber. And it's the B-2 bomber that we're talking about here. But they've got these high def videos of it. They're doing these war propaganda videos all the time on the B-2 bomber. They've got what is this? I think this is the B-2 bomber dropping MOPs. I don't know what MOPs are. I don't actually. Mother of, I don't know. But see these incredibly high tech. Oh, and this is of course, you guys will get this angle. Oh. Right here, which we're going to reference. This has always looked to me, of course, like they designed this thing after a hawk. If you look at the nose of the hawk, I did have a picture of it up here, I thought, but Let me just do a Google search of it. B2 bomber hawk. And then we'll get an image search. Yeah, here we go. There's a good one. So check this out. Here's the hawk, there's the B2 bomber. Quite obviously, they were made for one another in terms, or one was made after the other, and of course, since one's from nature, you have to presume that this factored heavily into the side profile design of this thing. So, of course, we also have the Night Hawk bomber. These things are all somehow related to hawks, right? The F-117. Now, this brings us back to the Seattle Seahawks and the November 5th steganography. Do you see what I mean? This was just something that keyed in on me because of all of this type of steganography, which was quite reminiscent of there potentially being something hidden in this game in particular because it's the beginning of their playoff season. I don't know. I don't know what the ritual is here. I don't do the gematria decodes on the sports anymore. It would make this video endlessly longer if I were to include that information anyway. But as you can see, the Hawk steganography going on here with these, all of a sudden, incredibly abundant war propaganda videos that you're seeing all over the internet of a plane that you couldn't get any footage of before, but now they're blanketing it everywhere as if it's going to be yesterday's news. You know, like it's just some basic fighter jet, and they've got the Whiteman Air Force Base logo popping up. So anyhow, that's some stuff that you guys should probably look into a little bit also if you are curious about what the heck is going on with the secret space program. But why the X and V steganography and the Earth Grid Control Network, I'll wrap up this video by saying, are probably why the guys that are the sorcerers and have lost control over the harmonic itself, I think, are reeling, is because you look at stuff like this, and CERN's looking for this fifth force particle, and they're still talking about false science, you know, basically scientific atomism. They're not taking this dude into account in anything that they're looking into. They don't believe in ether. These are dark matter idiots. And they have no basis in reality for what it is that they're looking at for this madness of particle science. Everybody who's seen the CERN logo is, you know, they've seen the 666 interspersed within this thing. They think they know everything because 666, of course, is the number of knowledge. We decoded that with the Vav 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 Monster Energy logo. In fact, 666, the mark of the beast. These guys think they have all the knowledge. But what's interesting about picking this apart for the lie that it is, but also, and the lie that it is just knowing that particles are a construct of their imagination. We have field theory, of course, which Nikola Tesla gave to us, proving that dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity are all that matters, and that electricity is not a particle. Light is not a particle. These things are all false realities. Gravity is not a force. You know, gravity is a result of a null point in counter space, or what you would call, you know, the dielectric field. So CERN X17, if you're going to look at this from the outset, you're going to get the devil card. How do you get the devil card from X17? And how do you know that this is partially related to their Earth Grid Control, at least agenda? Well, you needn't look any further than the Hebrew character He. And of course, He is represented with Yahweh. It's the H in Yahweh. So if you've got Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh, more steganography. Why was Yahweh's name Yahweh? We come up with He, which looks just like that. See if I can get, here we go. Here are some more representations. So here it is in serif font, classic Hebrew serif font, sans serif and monospace. Let me go back to the CERN, number 17. Does number 17 resemble hey at all to you guys? In fact, it is. 17, thusly so, is the 17 in the X17 particle lexicon. And what's interesting about hey is that it is the 5th letter right there in the Hebrew alphabet, which means if you were to convert 5 into the steganographical format of the Roman numeral, you would get V. So another way you can read X17 particle is XV. XV, the devil. Why is this so important to them? My supposition, to sum this all up, is that we are in position A, guys. This is where I want to instill a little bit of hope. The occult system we are finding more and more about. It's breaking down as time goes along. The 8th sphere and the moon that controls the 8th sphere is becoming weaker because of our ability to decode it. Additionally to that, the Earth is expanding along the Earth grid network right now because we're getting such an influx from the solar forcing from the grand solar minimum. Things are spreading, exacerbating themselves beyond the ability of these elites to keep up, I think. And so this is the time Jesus was forecasting to us, is that this would be the end times. Things would be breaking down. I don't know what speaks end times any better than year 0 to reset at 2020. If that's the meme that's being propagated by both the elite and the prescient language that the people are using, there's got to be something to that. And so really, truly, this is the last-ditch effort of these scientific materialists who truly believe that they can bring about their AI future through the harmonic forces of the 8th sphere. They think that this is going to be some sort of a way they can open up the portal, they can solve all their problems. This is it, though. This is their bonding devil moment. This is where they're trying to bring it all together. They don't have the correct formula to do it. Essentially, what I think has happened is they've become too stupid over time because of the inbreeding, because of the selective education that they've let people have. They've bred all the creative thought out, and they don't know that we even know how to think in terms of this anymore. And this is our moment to strike, however that may be. With, I mean, I don't even know. I would have to say that using this book as a guide, Who Built the Moon? The evidence is there that that the moon is the thing that we need to remove. My guess, everything that goes in with the book, The Ringmakers of Saturn, of course, to show the backside of this moon, because if you haven't seen my other video about the Ringmakers of Saturn, you may not know how I suggest the moon was constructed, right? Who Built the Moon is a good book by Christopher Knight to read, but this has got some illustrations that would show what the backside of the dark side of the moon would look like, based on what these vehicles that are parked around Saturn are creating. And it would certainly seem that the Voyager spacecraft captured these vehicles that are making these exhaust rings around Saturn and spitting out aggregate. Here's a picture of the vehicle that makes these things. It almost looks like an organic life form living out in the vacuum. And then, of course, the rings of Saturn being another harmonic that I think interacts with this 8th sphere to enhance it. Now, this has all been covered in my other videos, but the Saturnian energy down at the root chakra, keeping us in materialism, and then them using, of course, if we're going to look at the pentagram and the angles that it represents, V. If we're going to just take one of these angles, V or lambda, let's just take the lambda at the top, this piece. It's a 36-degree separation, and this is what a V and a lambda would be. It would be a 36-degree separation. 36, of course, is 666 in triangulars. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 all the way through 38. If you were to add all those numbers together, they'd equal 666. And so you see that they are even able to hide the steganography in the V and the lambda itself of the 666, the knowledge that they're including. So all of this factors in. If you've seen my other videos with all of the other Hebrew characters we've referenced, guys, they've hijacked the serpent energy. The serpent energy is good. It's of human energy, and they've made it into something that doesn't allow your kundalini to rise. Remember, twin snakes. These are two serpents. So don't fear the serpent. Pick apart and decode the riddle that is the Bible, the riddle that is our current time. Be glad that we have this new technology that they're being forced to bring out. Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin's forced to announce that they've got a bunch of experimental crafts. They're working with NASA, the supersonic jet. They got to give the public something, right? Here it is. There's the Skunkworks logo right outside their facility that they're pointing to. But it truly is. It's the Space Force that you can look forward to becoming a necessity for these guys because they've run out of money. The FASB 56B law that got passed by Congress is going to allow them to spend all the money that they can onto this thing. Hopefully they can do it before the economy falls apart, they figure, right? But use the symbols, guys. Use the symbols in these times. Maybe we'll even be able to get a couple of these TR3B crafts for ourselves as they become publicly available. And we'll equalize the playing field that much more in terms of knowledge, because nobody wants to go to war with these guys. All we want to do is kick them off Earth. And if it means figuring out a way to get this thing out of orbit and restore whatever the old moon was that the Native Americans talk about, and restore some sanity to this grid network and gain our psychic abilities back, hey, I think that's a noble thing for us to start thinking about, because as I'm also going to pop up here, if I can find, let me see if I can find the Yuga cycle to really remind, or maybe show people for the first time, what's in store for us here. If you haven't seen the Yuga cycle, this is where we're at. We're about right here. We're only in the Bronze Age with our orbit with Sirius, which is our binary star. Our spirituality is ascending. So if we can crescendo a moment that we can actually naturally rise our vibrations and activate our brain matter as we ascend through the age of, actually not the age of Aquarius, just like on here, we're at the age of Leo, guys. A lot of the New Age movement would have you believe that we're at the age of Aquarius, but they measure by the vernal rather than the autumnal equinox. So it's 180 degrees separate. We're going to the age of Leo right now, which Anubis is sitting on the friggin' top of here, keeping the secrets from. And everybody thinks that we're going to the age of Aquarius, but you notice that the age of Aquarius is also pouring out the serpent. So this is part of the riddle too. If we can gain our spiritual awareness back and learn more about these dark arts, and turn them not so much from dark arts, but just arts, and glorify them with the law of the order of one, like was pre-existent in Atlantis, then we can get somewhere with humanity. But anyway, kind of a lot to digest there. It's just what I see going into the new year. It really is. It really is something to break away from this. I'll use the term fuckhead. Just because I don't think of Ahriman fondly. And you know what? What is interesting about this that I'm just noticing is that this looks a lot like this. I don't know what that is. Is that, Interesting. I don't have time to sit here and decode that. Maybe somebody else also. Leave your comments in the section below if you see anything here with this white, because white man. I also think, of course, the white man is the genetically manipulated man as well, from the ancient Hebrew times, as we've talked about in my Yahweh material on the channel. But anyway, guys, I'll leave it there for now. I think let's take back the Hermetic energy, like the Hermes, the communicator, because as you can see, the back of the Mercury dime, as they called it, the fascist government, the corporation and the government control is still on us. And that's the harmonic energy. They've changed it to this dime over time, but they've cast these spells on us so many flippin' times using the same steganography that we never saw up until the age of the internet, en masse. But now's our time. So anyway, I compel you guys to have an awesome 2020. Kick this guy out of your thoughts. Get rid of Ahriman. Get rid of Lucifer. Because whoever Ahriman was, it contracted these 200 fallen angels down, and that's just where we're including Lucifer, and that's where we're at today. So anyhow, good luck with the new year, guys. May Christ be with you, as I would say for an actual, may the force be with you, and we'll talk real soon. Thanks.